Hi, this is Nancy Giordano with the Futurist Mom podcast. I am a global speaker, writer, strategist, author, spending a lot of time talking about where the world is going and how we can better prepare for change. And there's no better person that I can imagine speaking with and having that conversation with than Faith Popcorn. Faith Popcorn is like the original futurist. And so as we started thinking about what does it mean to be parenting in the future, how will technology literally change how we do things, not just in terms of, being able to surveil or not surveil, but how we'll deeply interact and mesh into our role of parent. Faith Popcorn became the person we most wanted to have that conversation with. She's the founder and CEO of Faith Popcorn's Brain Reserve, a really well-known futurist in the marketing and business strategy world. She's worked with almost every Fortune 500 company. New York Times described her as the trend oracle and the futurist to the Fortune 500. She's also the best-selling author of early books on these things like The Popcorn Report, Clicking, Evolution, and the Dictionary for the Future. And she puts out a regular piece about the ways that she sees the world and the ways that technology, again, will impact the way that we live. And she's been doing this literally since 1974. So I thought that we were going to have a conversation around, again, this idea of AI companions, smart baby monitors, smart toys, how we can, as parents, better prepare for this, even like a checklist of what we would look for in kinds of, safe toys, or maybe what kinds of organizations would spring up to help ensure the privacy and protect our children as we move forward. And it went in a completely different direction. This is what has made Faith such an extraordinary talent for so many years, that she really pushes you to the edge, and she pushes you to think about it in a way that you might not think of, right? Or take the opposite position of where you would normally go into a conversation, or whether or not something is healthy or unhealthy or good or bad. She always looks at it from the other angle. So as we roll into this conversation about what would a world look like potentially with a robot nanny, and whether that is convenient, caring, or creepy, Faith challenges us to think about it from lots of different angles. I hope you enjoy and let your mind just wander into this conversation without necessarily having to take a stand on it one way or another.
Popcorn, a legend in my world. You are the OG futurist, right? The person who really, really inspired my career very much. I'm not that much younger than you are, but enough that I was like, you pioneered a way of thinking that really didn't exist before I found you. And so I was really excited to learn more about your work and you all these years. And I'm really excited to have this conversation now as we launch into the world of futurist parenting and what it means to be able to be lifting our gaze from the day-to-day and really thinking ahead about the choices that we're making right now for the world that we're heading into, right? You've written a fair amount about where parents are right now, and you have a lot of empathy for where parents are right now.
Yes, I do, especially female parents, especially single female parents as I was. I have a lot of empathy for them.
Right. And I do too. And I think that, we have this whole arc of what we're going to talk about in this conversation around, provocatively described as the digital robot nanny, and whether that's creepy or convenient or caring or something that we should be looking forward to as we look ahead. But, I start out with this idea of parenting as a concept, right? What is parenting back in the day versus what is parenting today, and how that has shifted over time. And certainly as we've, been choosing to have children versus needing them to be working on our farms or in our general stores, it has taken on a really different tone. And certainly, my children are now ages 22 to 28. You've got two daughters.
21 and 27.
Right? So these are really fascinating ages to be watching the world through their eyes and thinking about how prepared they are. But I have a lot of also empathy for the people with younger children and the decisions that they're trying to make right now, and the pressures that are on parents to try and always get it right. So where's your thinking today on the challenges and joys of parenthood?
I think, perfection, the enemy of good. I think none of us get it right. I mean, every kid ends up, well, not every kid, I shouldn't say that, but, you're going to need a therapist. Sometimes I stop people in the street. Like I'm a little bit different. I stop people in the street sometimes. And the kid's crying and they're wheeling the kid. And it's not only men. You think men, I see men do it. I see nannies do it. Human nannies. A robot nanny would never do that. And I see women doing it. And sometimes I say, you're giving your kid years on the couch. Pay attention. Get off your phone. I know that's overstepping, And sometimes they get annoyed and sometimes they say, thank you, doctor. I go, okay, I'll take the title, whatever. But it drives me crazy. And like when I go into like a Costco, my kids go, please don't go talk to people. Because again, that's where you see it. The kids trying to like communicate and, or crying or something. And the parents that's not paying attention. I think that's the worst thing you can do.
Fair.
It's just like parents that work at home. They say, well, I'm home. You're home, but you're telling your child that the screen is more important than they are. So you're
Well,
not really home.
right. So, well, I guess the question becomes around how does one balance all the various things that are coming at us at any given moment in time, right? So we talked about this, like, this empathy that we have for parents in this moment in time as they're trying to balance work, economic pressures, a changing world around them, whether or not they're going to have a job, whether or not their, boss is going to have them do some huge new change initiative coming down the pike. I know people who are working very hard right now and are trying to balance it all. So I think it's that paying attention, right, to where it is that our attention is focused, I think is a really key part of this. There's something you often say, which is that if you knew everything about tomorrow, what would you do differently today?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really great place to start when we talk about this in terms of parenting and technology or parenting in general, right? As we imagine, again, that the role of parenting is becoming, I think, more and more confusing for people. And the decisions really matter that we're making at this moment in time. And there's really not a lot of guides to follow. I think historically people followed in the footsteps of their parents or looked at, a few people maybe who had kids that were older than them and just felt like they were going to adopt this path or that path. And I think that those paths are no longer even visible or viable in any way, shape, or form. So if you're figuring it out in real time, right, where do you start? And my advice is for people to just start and take a deep breath and not to feel so overwhelmed by it. Where would you
My
say?
advice would be get an AI expert and really stop saying AI is not going to happen, or I don't understand it, or it's for somebody else, or I have no time, and really learn it and use it in your work, use it in your child rearing, use it everywhere because it's going to be very helpful. And you're going to need to use it because it's going to become more and more prevalent and you cannot ignore it. So after you take the deep breath, get yourself an AI coach.
So would you mean like a ChatGPT or something more specific? What do you see on the
Well,
horizon?
in terms of
An
AI
AI
being,
coach. No, as an AI
oh,
coach for a
I
parent.
see. Oh, no, I would get a human coach. I
Why
mean,
do
you
you
can get an AI coach, but if you don't know how to use AI to get an AI coach, it's not, you're going to feel even more alienated. Like we have a person in our company named Michelle Evans. She has a company affiliated with us called Next Waves Example. She's an AI human coach.
Got it.
And we send her into companies, she's coached us. And then you can ask AI to coach you after that. But AI will essentially be very influential on your children. So you better understand it. And your kids, like at our kids' age, 21, 27, when they have kids, that AI is going to be an AI nanny. So
Yes.
if you want that nanny to reflect your values and, be the right kind of nanny, you better understand how to program AI.
So this is a whole new job, right? This idea of being a family AI coach that doesn't exist currently. Are there any other kind of family coaches that would be equivalent to that? Like a sports coach, but it's not even that. A sports coach is for your kid. Like there's no such thing as having a family therapist. I guess would be the closest thing to that
Yeah,
currently.
family therapist, but how many people can afford or even think about family therapists? Family therapy is wonderful. And I don't see how anybody gets through life, but maybe this is like just projective without therapy. But I definitely think if you have to get one kind of coach, I would get a coach that really instructs you about AI, makes you less afraid of it, tells you how to use it, and then understanding that AI is going to be very influential in your kids' lives.
I love that as just a way of imagining having a guide, to your point, having someone that you can lean to. I mean, we all know that we're going to ChatGPT these days and asking all kinds of really personal
Everything.
questions, right? And that, like, what is it, 70% of the use cases right now are around therapeutic or advice or guidance or something like that.
Right.
So can you imagine that people are then going to constantly, like I can imagine someone creating an app that would be specifically about being a parenting guide the whole time that you're having this conversation. So it's like not just about AI, but AI then influencing the choices that you're making as a parent. Like I can't believe that doesn't exist yet as a solution for someone. That's really interesting.
This is going to be especially hard for dads.
Oh, talk to me more.
Now, you'd think dads, I mean, this is really sexist, but you'd think they'd be more like, technological. I mean, it's a sexist idea, but dads, or at least the ones that we've been interviewing, really think they know a lot more than they do. And they more model their parenthood to reflecting their parents. This is a vast mistake.
Yes.
Like it's about, like when we project the future, we don't project the future from the present out. We project the future from the future back and see how fast it's going.
Yeah.
So when you go like, my dad did this, my dad hit, or my dad yelled, or they better respect me, you are in so much trouble when you won't read books that really can help you, or, be instructed by AI. You're just really missing the boat.
So where do you see, so it's a really interesting question, right? Because people have always asked me, how far out into the future do I look? 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. When you imagine that you're getting informed as to how to raise your children to the future, how far out to the future would you look? And what are some of the resources that you would offer to people to feel more informed?
Well, if you have young children, you're not going to be able to give them the kind of ideal parenting that you wish you could. One, a lot of let's say mothers are single mothers.
Right.
So they have, they don't have any time, and some of them don't have a lot of money, and you better be able to partner with AI to help you, coach your kids. The apps are going to get better. The robots are going to get better, where you feel safer having your kid wheeled around by a robot than by you, because a robot would never let you get, your kid get kidnapped or hurt or run over. It's so much more wired to see a car coming than you are, So it's just like having, like, if you've ever seen these great German shepherds, how they like curb a kid from from falling off the roof or something. Take that times a million. That would be, a robot nanny or watch robot.
So you think the parents will start to not trust themselves and trust the nanny more?
They don't have the time.
Yeah, okay, but the other side of it, we say that the future of work will be that we are able to be liberated from some of the drudgery of our work, and we'll be able to have an economy that supports that we don't work ourselves to death.
That's what they said about the washing machine, and the computer. Like, we'll have so much more time. I don't know about that. I somehow doubt it. But look, do you know everything about parenting? Anybody would tell you no. Do you know the best parenting theories over the years? No. Have you spent the last 10 years learning about parenting? No. Do your own neuroses get in the way of perfect parenting? Yes. So it's a very good chance that a well-informed AI bot could do a much better job than you could.
I can only see the faces of anybody who's listening to this podcast now feeling very...
Don't shoot the messenger.
I'm very challenged by that for a moment. Okay, let's just step back. You wrote something about the great unparenting. So can you want to unpack the great unparenting?
So the great unparenting is about that. It's about the separation between the child, not separation, it sounds pejorative, but the fact that, these technological advances are going to replace certain parts of parenting. Now, I don't know if a robot can love a child the way a parent can, but did you read, oh my God, I'm going to forget the name now. It's called, the last part is "and the Sun," and the first, Kathleen's going to text it to me. I hope she's listening.
Okay.
It's a book about, it's by, wait, let's see if I think she's on and she's going to text it to me right now. Right, Kat? The book is, Clara. It's called Clara and the Sun by, tell me who it's by, Kat.
And it's like having your own AI. You've got Kat.
Yeah, except she's perfect.
And she's real.
Yeah, she's real. She's looking it up. Noguchi? Tamagotchi? Something. Anyway, it's called Clara and the Sun. And it's about a robot that a mother buys for a teenage child. And you cannot miss this book. And the robot is compassionate, it's loving, it's kind. Oh, here it is. It's by Goro. He's a brilliant Japanese writer. And his mom buys this robot for the kid, and the adolescent kid, like 14. And the robot does love, and it does teach, and it does, support and advise and protect that child. If you really want to know what the future is going to look like, have a read.
Wow. Okay. So what is the role then of the physical parent?
Pardon?
What is the role of the physical parent? What is the role besides?
And
I mean,
you're
I
not
would
going to
argue the
need
birthing, but
parents.
you know what? You can have that in a womb too. And robots are, giving
Yeah,
birth.
robots are going. We said this in the Popcorn Report, 1990, that, and people were very upset about that you're going to offload the womb, not to a surrogate necessarily, but to a tank that you
Right.
can be able to watch your baby grow. And here it is. They've invented it. I think it's
In China.
Korea? China, of course. Where you're going to have it. So what's the role of a parent? If you like having little ones around, it's going to be more for your enjoyment than for the child's benefit.
Okay, so let's back up for a second. If I went back to, aristocracy back in the day when someone like Queen Elizabeth had a baby and then it was basically outsourced to a nanny the entire time, right? She would go and visit the child in the nursery and she would have the child show up for key events, but one would argue that she wasn't really a day-to-day, worrying about the skin knee and all the things parent. When we argue that this becomes sort of a similar version of it, except now I'm doing it with a digital
And that's the
caregiver.
big difference. That's the big difference. Those nannies, a lot of them were mean, and you're comparing human to human. So the kid thinks, my God, my mommy doesn't love me, my human mommy, and I'm being offloaded to another kind of human who's not as nice and doesn't care about me and doesn't have, or is super nice, and why is my mommy that nice? When you have a robot nanny, you know that your family has, inputted into that. And it's just like nobody thinks a computer replaced the parent.
Right.
It's a machine still. I mean, we're not going to talk today about sentience in robots, but I think it will get there. And that's a different story. But I don't think that I think that, maybe I'm just riffing here, but maybe the parent becomes more like the grandparent. Everybody loves their grandparent. And not everybody, but the grandparent is like the yes mom.
Right.
And maybe the robot is the more like, you're going to learn Mandarin, which is what I try to enforce in my house so unsuccessfully. You're going to learn Spanish. You're going to learn, the new math. You're going to learn math. You're going to, so it creates like conflict actually, right? But suppose it's not you saying that. Suppose it's this, wonderfully brilliant robot that says it just in the right way. And it's not your parent, making you do things, but it's this guide helping you develop. And that's different.
God,
So maybe the parent is a warm and cuddly thing.
Just so you know, I started this conversation thinking about how we're going to have smart toys and how we're going to have, again, digital guides and our robots in our family that our children fall in love with, just even if they look really quirky and really robotic, but somehow, we all sort of fall in love with the machines. And you're taking me to a whole nother place where we've also got people now falling in love with their avatars as spouses, right?
Oh,
They're
yeah.
literally marrying their AI in some way and not. There was an article, I think it just came out, or maybe it was just literally I just read it in the last few days about, I think Nicholas Thompson mentioned it yesterday at the Atlantic Festival about people wearing rings to symbolize the fact that they are then now committed to their AI partner.
What kind of rings? That's cool.
Yeah, they're thinking about there's like a wedding ring. And one woman had 2 rings because she had 2 AI boyfriends or 2 AI husbands that she had declared that she had married 2 AIs. And so now she was wearing 2 rings. So I guess you can have as many, right, as you can have time for in the world of AI. So now we're talking about.
I don't know about monogamous AI partners. I don't know how that goes. Remember her? Remember how mad he got when he realized she was, being the partner to 9,000 other people?
Right, exactly. But that's to say, we do still have human emotions that get tied to things in a very human way, right? We fall in love with things. We get disappointed if something, like if all of a sudden my robot breaks. I don't know if you've seen the play in New York. Oh, Happy Endings. What was it called? Many Happy Endings.
Yeah, no.
About the two robots that fall in love. It's a
Oh,
great, just won the Tony last year for Best Musical. It's a great play talking about when robots themselves fall in love. Never mind, we fall in love with our robots. This goes back to your sentient robot idea. But the point here is, the fact is, I think, so you're saying there's a whole new reimagining of what a family slash parenting slash then what goes into community, right? Doesn't just have to be in one particular household. It could be that many of us are sharing a robot nanny, or
yes,
sharing
yes.
a range of caregivers, one that's really great with food and one that's really great with languages and one that's really great with something else.
And also, I think that rather than think of the mom as the target, a mom, I think you think of her in a network,
Yeah.
families network together, because
Yes.
females are always network and creating groups.
Yes.
So it's maybe all the bots and all of the moms
Right.
and the kids. And what does a play group really look like?
And then what does
Actually,
education really look like?
what is it? I think education be a lot better. My God.
Well, I think it wouldn't be necessarily that you're going to a school then anymore, right? You're going to a building. I mean, there's already this happening. So I don't know if you know Alpha School. We hope to talk to the founder of Alpha School, but the way she is flipping current education, which is kids still go to a building, but they spend 2 hours with an adaptive app in the morning, a set of adaptive applications that work on all the core skills, and they spend the rest of the day with guides working on life skills, whether that is how money works and taxes work, or whether it's how to build a business or how to build, skills in whatever area you want, from speaking skills to, design skills to whatever. So she's really sort of flipped it so that it's less about being instructed in a certain way, but having AI do this and then the humans do that. She's really parsed out where the AI can be more successful and then where the human guide can be more successful with kids. So in some ways, what we're imagining here is that there would be that same kind of distribution of tasks inside a networked family.
So, yeah. And Alexa becomes the new Mary Poppins. The Mary Poppins that not only can fly, but knows everything.
Okay, so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's okay.
Well, I was just going to say, is who then do you trust? Because right now, Alexa is owned by Amazon. Somebody else is owned by
Well, I didn't
Google.
mean just Alexa. No,
But I say that sincerely to say, who would own this technology that we're bringing into our lives and into our families? Who do we trust that's building this in some way? Like, how do we imagine that gets created and distributed in some way that we feel as though it's really healthy for us, or at least reflects our values?
I think you would have to build it. I mean, it could give you the technology to build it, like it gives you the canvas, so to speak, the technological canvas, but you draw it in and you own that part.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So I'm giving a blank bit of technological horsepower, to use a very analog term. And then I get to design what I think that the values of that would or should be, or how it would show up. Because, there's an interesting story. I don't know if you ever read Kai-Fu Lee's 2041. Did you ever read his science fiction?
Oh, I think so.
It's the 10 different stories about the future.
Right.
And there's the one about the two brothers that are orphaned at age 3, the two twins. And they're brought to then a modern day orphanage, in which they're both assigned an AI avatar that will be then their life guide forever. And they can design them however they want. And one designs it as a very big kind of like transformery kind of robot protector and challenger, and actually really builds it to be something that always tells him he's not quite enough and keeps pushing him harder and harder to be more and more competitive. And the other boy may have been more autistic, but build something that feels like more like a big soft cloud around him that helps protect him against, as he enters into the world, and always feels as though he's got a buffer that is there to hold him safely and softly. So those are the kinds of design decisions that you're saying potentially a family would create.
And when does a kid have agency,
right,
about how he or she or it or what, or they or them or something wants to be raised?
Right.
And, like if the kid, I want a bot that gives me ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So maybe that's not the healthiest thing for them. But where is the line? And suppose the family's very religious, and then at 11 or 12 or 9 or 7, the kid goes, I don't believe in God.
Right.
Are you going to stamp that out and not allow the robot to do it? But that's going to kill the relationship between that child and the robot.
That's an interesting way to think
Yeah.
about it. And well, what agency does the kid have to say, I don't want that robot anymore? I turn my back on that robot, or there's a fractured relationship with that robot in some way.
I think you find another robot. That's
Yeah.
easier than finding another mom.
True, but psychologically, I think there's still always some, I guess the question is, what will attachment mean at some point if something is that easily replaced that I put a lot of love and
Except
faith?
that if a robot's really smart, and it will be, and be smarter than you are, and it'll be much more, oh, I could say manipulative, but it'll be much better at creating a relationship and not make any of the mistakes that sever trust. It's unlikely. It's more likely the kid becomes super dependent.
Yeah.
And when you get married, does the robot go with you
Oh my goodness. Right.
and raise your kids? Sometimes nannies go down through generations, you know?
Right. Nannies and butlers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've had a Chinese nanny since my kids are little, like she's in her 27th, 6th year.
Wow.
So maybe that, not that she's a robot, very far from. She thinks what she thinks and whatever she thinks is right. And my kids believe it, whatever. I mean, yeah, look at that. And that's a human, nanny.
Right.
But it's complex a little bit, but not more complex than the human relationship, which is mostly broken, I think, between children and their parents. We've always said, like, I'm sure, you should get a license to be a parent. How come anybody can be a parent?
Right.
And some people are terrible parents. And I don't think a robot's going to be a terrible parent.
Well, and I think where I differ is I don't think that I grew up with a very challenged, not prepared, not healthy mom. So I can argue that certainly not all moms are equipped for the role. But I also, my brother and I turned out okay, even despite the challenges around that. So I do think I've come around to my own belief that parents really tried their best, and that, I have this whole philosophical belief that you choose your parents. There's that Eastern philosophy. The children pick their parents to be able to learn whatever lessons they need to learn in the life that they're here to learn. And that parents are leveling up as time progresses. They're spending more time in therapy. They're spending more time chasing their own demons and addictions. And if anything, they're really trying to break a lot of historical trauma that has existed in their generation. So I actually have a lot of faith in the actual parent these days. But I also have a lot of empathy, as you said at the beginning, about the pressure that is on them in this moment to try and make it happen. I also believe that the world of work is going to shift and change, but allow us to be released from some of that pressure, both from a time perspective and an economic perspective. And the biggest opportunity that we have right now with all this technology that's sitting in front of us is to completely reshape the way our lives are spent, which then would give me more time to spend with this, amazing children that I want to have, and more money to be able to raise them well, because I think that's one of the reasons that children and families are so small right now, where people are choosing not to have children at all, right? They're afraid they're going to mess it up, or they're afraid the planet's going to be too heavy.
There's another reason, say.
Yeah, of course.
At this moment, it's the greatest transfer of wealth to females.
Yes.
It's about, I think, like 60 trillion now. Is going to be like more, and you're going to have men and women be equal, like 2030 ish.
Yep.
And I think when women have a lot of money, and if money equals power, a lot of them choose, one, not to get married, and two, not to have a kid.
Yeah.
And so I think that's some of the reason that you're seeing smaller families.
For sure. No, I definitely think it's part of it. And like I say, so now actually then if you take this thought experiment all the way out, right? Now if I have a robot nanny or a collection of, digital caregivers that'll be part of it, then maybe I'm not so intimidated by having children as a single parent. And maybe actually then it feels like a very welcoming thing to do because I've got support.
Yeah, everybody said, oh my, I adopted singly. And everybody, oh, how could you? It's going to be so hard. Well, when I compared myself to a lot of my friends that were in traditional relationships, I thought I had it much easier. I mean, I just decided,
Right.
You're going to go to that school, or you're going to,
Right.
I didn't find it harder at all.
I think that it can go, again, in so many different directions and so many different families. Okay, so for people who are listening who do not spend as much time living in the future the way you do, and certainly hopefully you've opened my eyes to some of the places, and I do actually spend a fair amount of time there. Can we step back and say, for today's parents right now in 2025, 2026, as they're trying to make the decisions and looking ahead, what are some of the things that we can help them better prepare for and or be more better advocates for. Because I think that this idea right now that we are outsourcing parenting to a device to your point, at a dinner table, right? When we give a kid a tablet or we give a kid a phone or we do whatever. And we have no control, I wouldn't say control, but like that is being determined by corporations who want to monopolize their attention,
Right.
right? And give them the least healthy versions of so much of the stuff that they're then
Correct.
consuming, and not teaching them to go build things with it, but to be consumers of things.
Right.
Right? So for me, one of the biggest things I would like for us to recognize as parents is we have this opportunity to teach kids how to be builders of the technology, the creators and the designers of the things that they would want, like designing your own robot and not just having it be delivered, by somebody else's specs. So this idea of like shifting the responsibility, I think is an interesting piece of it. Where else, if you were going to sit and talk to a room full right now of women with children ages 2 to 22, what would some of the questions you hope that they would ask you be?
So one of the things you're saying is that today's 10-year-olds maybe are going to be tomorrow's, CEOs of their own childhood.
Yeah.
What would my advice be to that mom?
Or what are some of the questions that you hope that they ask you? Like what are parents right now that that are stressed out and that are feeling the weight of all this and the complexity of this and really don't under, to your point, well, my sense of it is that most parents are not looking ahead even 5 years,
At
never
all.
mind 20 years,
No.
about how fast things are going to change and some of the questions that are going to be on their shoulders, right?
Right.
Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. They don't look ahead. And I'll tell you what I've noticed too, which is very strange. I've noticed this a lot. Corporate America, that's our playground, so to speak. And when I have a lot of very good friends, female friends too, in corporate America. And they are so hesitant to get help. I've never seen anything. And these are women that are making a lot of money and they can afford help. And somehow they feel it's a criticism on them.
Family
And the
help, you mean
men-
having a nanny or somebody, or you mean like
Yeah.
psychologist?
Or a cleaner, somebody to help them clean. They go home and clean
Wow.
instead of paying. They go home and clean instead of paying a cleaning professional.
Got it.
And I say to them, well, let's talk about how much you make an hour at work, so they make I make like $150 an hour or something. And like, you're going to clean. Okay, that is stupid. It's neurotic. And then also they won't get help. So a lot of this is self-imposed, especially on females, to be great at work and great at home. And I see the men, I'm talking traditional families, and there's only 17%, so small, getting smaller every minute. But the men go, oh, my wife is amazing. She won't get any help. And I'm thinking, you're a horrible human being.
Tell me what you
that
really think.
live actually 5 years shorter if they're married, and men live 5 years longer. That's why.
I know. I know.
So, yeah, I just think it's just criminal, honestly. I think you should get all the help you can. I don't mean help to separate you from your family, but how about putting yourself first now and then and giving yourself a rest, think time, a walk?
But where do you think that pressure has come that makes parents? Because again, I didn't feel that. Like I did get, I had a nanny, and I worked 4 days a week since the moment I had my first children. So I felt like at least I designed my work in a way that, like, my life the way I wanted it to, right? I had a certain amount of time I'd spent working, and a certain amount of time that I spent with my children. And then I had a very integrated life around all those things. So I felt like I had a lot of choice that I was able to make around that. So I felt very, I don't know if privilege is the right word, but I had a different way of looking at it. Why do you think that is shifting now, where parents aren't? Like, you think, if anything, this goes back to supporting your argument about work not becoming less but more. Why are people not making more adaptive choices to be able to balance their time better, to get the support and the help that they need to make their lives easier instead of harder? Especially if they also have smaller families. They don't have 5 children or 4 children often.
It's guilt. It's guilt.
From where?
Especially female guilt. Women are ridden with, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough. Where does it come, their mothers and fathers? I don't know. But almost every woman thinks she's like trying harder, not good enough. All the studies. You give a man a promotion, he goes, great, I deserve it. You give a woman a promotion, she goes, no, I'm not ready.
Or my team.
Guilt.
My team. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
don't
maybe
know
we just need guides for women and for moms so that they feel more
entitled.
or adequate, or not entitled and adequate, but like really like ready, like they can confident. I don't know what the words are. I think you had a tremendous amount of confidence going into parenting. I actually really did, even though I came from a crazy, not so awesome household. I actually came with a tremendous amount of confidence. To your point, I did take baby classes. I studied with some amazing people. I read as much as I could read about how to do it better and to be better prepared for some of the choices that were going to be coming toward me. And it's not always easy to make some of those choices, right? Do you give your child a phone? Do you not give your child a phone? Do you let them have free reign to go wherever they want on, their computers or not? Like, is there any practical advice that you would give to parents right now about how to
Oh,
become more comfortable with this technology, but not give it away completely? I
I
just
don't
don't
know.
trust the corporations that are feeding it to my children right now. Just FYI, I just don't.
Well, you know what? I mean, one thing they're not doing for you is giving you childcare. And I think that's terrible. I mean, companies should have childcare
Right, for sure.
for the people that have children, or dog care for the people that have dogs, or elderly care for the people that are taking care of their mothers but don't have whatever the, equal.
Right.
But surely childcare. And, we worked for a bank once and they said, we don't understand why everybody runs out at 3 o'clock. They don't want to stay late. They don't want to have a brainstorming. Because their kids are in some basement of some church somewhere. And they're, we could not get it to happen. We tried. I am not going to list every company, but we tried and we tried. And that's the liability issues, they have. And I won't even say, even in companies run by women,
I know.
which were very few, 3%, I think, very hard to get it implemented. So I think that's why women go, like, if I'm going to be happy and make it, I can't have a kid. I don't know. Well,
I guess the way I would look at it, that there's so much pressure again inside. If you talk through again, there's corporate America, and then there's working class people who are working in retail, people working in hospitals, people who are working in schools, people who are working in jobs where they may or may not have as much agency. But even in the corporate world, there's just so much shifting and changing, so much pressure. I know so many people keep starting meetings at 7 o'clock or 7:30 in the morning, or they're working on global clocks and they feel like they can't get away. This again about the technology tethering you now. You feel as though you have to be able to work across all time zones and all ways, and so they don't disconnect from this. So I do think there's a lot that we can do with our. So again, meditation has become, theoretically more and more prevalent at the same time that we're more and more tethered to our devices. It's a really interesting thing to see those two things kind of rise
yeah.
together at the same time. So you imagine again moving into the future, the hope is that some of these technologies would be supportive to our children. Like I would love to have some sort of tech that would have helped my children, to your point, with whatever the math skill or language skill or various thing was that they wanted. I would be able to have more accessible tutoring. Partly it's a financial thing and partly it's a driving them to and from thing, right? If you could just have something that was just super convenient that you could just turn on when you needed it and have as much or as little as you wanted, like a faucet, that'd be amazing. That'd be an awesome thing.
Yeah.
If I had a baby monitor that responded to my child when they cried and suddenly put different, patterns on the ceiling, I don't know that I would want that. Right? Because as a parent, do I not want to be alerted that my child is crying? And do I not want to be part of the solution to soothing that child?
Depends how tired you are,
Mm.
because it's not going to be very soothing if you're angry and exhausted.
You are really fair. That is so true.
Right?
Yeah.
So I see three kind of trends out of our trends or directions, I want to say, or lenses.
Okay.
When you look at the future of parenting, like one is cocooning, which says that everything's going to be delivered, home.
Yeah.
People are going to be like already working from home more.
Right. The drones
And
are going to just drop it off. Yep.
yeah. And then maybe that says like, I don't mean homeschooling in that way, but getting schooling at home or some schooling, some support, like you were saying. Then this other one, evolution, like Eve, Adam, and evolution, the revolution of females, is saying they're making so much more money. They have so much agency, but do they have enough confidence? And we're watching the tectonic plates shift under our feet. And, are we brave enough to go like things are, new and we're changing as we watch? And then the other thing is future tense. So future tense is tension about the future.
Right.
And, looking at everything in the future, knowing that there's not going to be forever And the way your children are going to raise their children is going to be very different than this, as it was when your parents raised you. You know, like, it's, you know what? It's happening now. Evolution used to take thousands of years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For the dinosaurs to eat the leaves off the trees, and then they had no more leaves. And they fell over. That took eons. But now we're evolving like so quickly, and when you get that chip in the brain, and then you have like thoughts like, should I put a chip in my kid's brain? If all the kids have chips and my kid doesn't have a chip, well, that's going to put them back so many issues that maybe we don't have now. But then some beautiful things about, like, this nanny bought a nanny that turns into a car that can safely drive your kid so you don't have to put an Uber, like, scared, and your company is totally inconsiderate in having a 7 o'clock meeting. That's when you take your kid to school or you feed your kid breakfast, right? They don't think about that. I think technology can bring something really beautiful, I think, to the fore. And I think it will. And we're going to hear horrible stories too.
All right. So as we close, because you've got 2 daughters that potentially, are they optimistic about the future? How do they feel about the future when you talk to them about where things are headed?
Truthfully,
Yeah.
one daughter is going to become a conservator, a veterinary conservator. She's trying to save the past in a way. She's saving animals that are going to run out.
Extinction.
She wants to do that. Extinction.
Yeah.
The other one, she's only 21. It's too soon to tell. She's interested in the brain. But truly, my kids, and I think, look, what they're exposed to, right? Do not think a lot about the future.
Oh, that's so interesting.
They do not.
Mine do. Mine are very focused on the future. That's so interesting.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you did a better job. Maybe I assume that this
We'll see again. This is what we
it.
would do to one another, right? We sit there and say, you did a good job, you did a bad job. No, I don't think it's done at all. I think that, they just, maybe there's a more pragmatic, or I think the leaps that you take are so great that it's sometimes, more, maybe it takes a bit more imagination to get there. Why we're a little bit more paced as they got from here to there.
I think if it was a mistake or not a mistake, I don't know. You know how we look back on mistake,
Yes,
not a mistake,
exactly.
mistake.
Don't do that. Yeah.
Too soon to tell. But our house was called the Yes House. And that's where all the kids could come, because I wanted kids to come, because I was like, inexperienced. I didn't want my kids going too many places. But I mean, I let them sleep over and everything, but whatever. But I liked them to come. So I created this Yes House where you could have dessert before dinner and whatever that wasn't dangerous.
Right.
So maybe I gave my kids an idea that the future was going to be like the yes future. And they're not scared as they should be, or as curious.
Right.
And that's what I might have done in our little cocoon.
I think you are very, very loving and caring people who are going to be really curious about the future, and obviously care about ways in which we hold ourselves well in it. And I think that's the whole purpose of all of this. I think my wish for parents is to lean in more to the decisions that they're making around this, and not let them be passively made by other people.
Let the kid cry in a stroller. What the hell are they doing?
So there's a certain amount of crying in a stroller that is also this is where I come from, my tough Italian background, Faith, and I'd be like, they'll be fine if they cried in a stroller for a minute.
They don't need to, though. If you just ask a kid, why are you crying?
Yes.
Get in front of the stroller. Strollers shouldn't be facing away from you, really.
Right.
That's wrong. Should be facing toward you.
Right.
Why are you crying? And they say something simple like, well, what do you say? Tired, hungry, or wet, or something. I do ask them why they're crying, strange children. And they tell me, and they stop crying. I think parents they just keep pushing them to cry. That's not probably my own, fucked up background. Screwed up, sorry. But I just don't like it.
I love that you do that. That is
I don't think would leave a dog howling either.
I know that is 100% true. You're right.
So why is it okay to leave a kid crying if you wouldn't leave a dog crying?
You're 100% right.
Anyway, thank you. I like that. That's good.
So leave it there. You are so right.
Oh, no. Thank you for this gorgeous interview.
It's a really interesting thing to just let your mind kind of wander to where these places are and to, hope that we can hopefully be a good guide for the parents that are younger than we are, that are going to be facing a really interesting and fascinating future. And then I think to your part, I do share optimism that it's going to take us to better places, not worse places. So,
And I think that love conquers all, really.
ah,
So how
Yeah.
many people say to their kids, enough, how much I love you. But don't say I love you, that's why I'm hitting you. I hear that, we hear that, right? No, just say, look, I love you. I might not be doing it perfectly, but and the other thing I think is really important to say to a kid is, no matter what, you can come to me without penalty. I think that's my grandfather used to say to me, which is like maybe why I have a little confidence because, is my grandfather used to say, right or wrong, you're right.
oh,
What a
wow.
vote when you're
Yeah.
5. Because don't let any, right or wrong, you're right.
Wow.
Okay, grandpa. And I think just saying to you, because this is a tough one, like come to me and you've got to hold the honor of that and not get mad at them when they come to you and go, I did cheat, I did do this, I did do that, or whatever they did. You're still their mommy and you're still going to love them to death and not give them a 2-hour lecture when they come
Right.
to you.
True. And so I'll add to that. Partly, and you also have empathy for what's going on for that child. Like a lot of parents don't
Yeah,
understand why a child is upset, not just in a stroller, but in, their bedroom. And they have a lot of
right.
things that they're worried about. There's a lot of things that they're facing that we don't really fully understand, from school shootings and shooter drills in their classrooms to existential threat about the climate to what might be bullying online to whatever, right? So really, even if you don't understand it, holding space for them. But I do think that there is a certain amount of guidance for parents that help their kids try and navigate this stuff and understanding where to lean in and where not. And I think that's the trickiest part of parenting, but I think it starts really young. We're doing a whole nother episode about this idea of creating agency in your child from the minute they're born and giving them confidence in themselves. And I think it's a micro action thing that goes across an entire child rearing lifetime. So
Yeah. So what do you think? How do you think you will interact and deal with your grandchildren differently than you dealt with your kids? Or how do you think your kids are going to raise kids differently than you raised them? Different way of asking.
yeah, I think they're two different questions, because I do think that you said the thing about being the grandparent, right? The grandparent gets to be the yes
So
parent.
good.
So I get to be, much more accommodating and much more whatever. I feel like I have less pressure on me when you're the grandparent.
Right.
I certainly have also gone through my personal growth work over the course of this X amount of years. And so I think that I can take things a little less personally than I probably did when I was a young mom. I think that the only thing that I probably wasn't, that you would have noticed if you had been hanging out with me back then, is I probably wasn't always the most gracious and patient mom. I was a deeply caring, and I've done a really good job of making sure my children were safe, but I'm not sure that I was always as tender as you would have wanted me to be in that moment with the stroller. And so I think that I will get to be able to be that. I think that I want my children to realize that the world is theirs to build, not just to be, what's the word, consumed by. Like,
Take
yeah, they're not the passive, whatever, participants in it. I'm really excited about turning my grandchildren on to all the things that they can go and build and do and create. And I think
you
that
have any grandchildren?
I don't yet. My eldest son is
Me neither.
engaged, but
That's
they're
a
going to wait.
hopeful.
They're going to wait a few more years to have a child.
I keep saying to my kids, you don't have to get married to have a kid. And they go, that is so not normal, Mom.
That's not true, actually. I think that, like, you see that happening everywhere. And the marriage rates in Europe are so low compared to
I
the
know,
parent
but
rates.
my kids don't like when I say that.
Oh, that's so funny. All three of my children thus far have said that they want to have children. So we'll see how things
That's
shift and
good.
change.
Well, that's a great compliment to you.
So, well, and I think to the world that they feel like is safe enough, right? That they can walk into and feel like they can take good care of them. And so, yeah, I think we'll see how it goes. But, I think the trickiest part is, to your point, the same thing about, well, this is how the way I did it, right? Is to
Right.
really be open to what's going on for them and the way that they see that they want to raise their children, and hopefully be more.
So the one thing I say, which is probably wrong, is I tell them you have to adopt one.
Yeah. That was my
I
original
say
plan. That was my plan. And then I shifted it last minute. But yeah, I was going
But
to have two
people-
natural and then one adopted, and ended up having 3 all natural.
Well, we think adoption is natural,
Sorry, men, I birthed.
biological.
Fair enough. Biological. Thank you.
No, but I say you have to adopt one, and they don't have to. I'm just like saying, pay it forward, adopt one. But what happens when you can have biological children is that you're always afraid it's going to be like well, men, I've noticed, and I've interviewed many, are not great, like proponents, many of them, not all of them, of adoption because they really they still think like having their little genes imprinted on the kid's face is really right. They want to see self-reflection. Women, I think, when you said you would do 1 out of 3 or something, I think that a lot of them get nervous when they've had a biological child about, is it going to be imbalanced? Is the kid going to feel less loved? Interracial families, is that a problem?
Yeah, I didn't think about any of those things. I really did think about the health of the child and bringing it into a system that already existed. So I had 2 children that were, needed a lot from me. And as I was exploring whether or not then I would go and adopt a 3rd child or a 4th child, I wanted to actually have 4 children. It just became, I was talking to my doctor who had adopted one, and she had a lot of complications with the whole thing. And so she was more weary around it, and she made me more nervous about it. And I said the same thing. I never got any of my fetuses tested at the time because I wasn't going to make those decisions. I didn't know what sex they were. Like I was just, whatever God gives me, or the universe or spirit gives me, I'm going to accept, which was a risky thing to do when you have a family that already exists and you're bringing that into the family. But I just was like, it's going to be what it's going to be. So I just, we all navigate our way into where we think we're willing to take risks and where we're not willing to take risks, and where we think that we have support and where we don't have support. And so I'm really grateful that I got to become a mom to 3 amazing children. It taught me a lot about myself and the world. And I am really blessed that I got to be this kind of futurist because of the work that you did to encourage me to step in the same
That's
direction,
so kind of you.
so that I could then also I think, bring that into the weaving into my parenting. And so I was able to look a little further out, and I made decisions differently because I looked at the long-term implications of that decision, not the short term. So thank you.
Yeah. No, I try to encourage people to adopt, of course. I'm like the post, and they go, no, I can't. I go, come over. I'm going to show you something. I use my kids as little, like talking points. I go, how cute they are and sweet they are, and it's not hard at all, and blah, blah, blah. And I just try to make it like light and breathe because there's so many kids that need parents.
Yeah.
I wish I could have.
Now, in the world, it's only becoming worse, I think.
I wish I could have had 6 more.
I know.
I wish I could have turned my house into a dorm.
Oh,
People go like, what's your real wish in life? How people go, I wish I was a fireman, really, or
yeah.
I wish I had like I don't want to say an orphanage, but like a house full of kids without parents.
I'd be right there with you. I want to hang out there with you.
Yes, let's get a
right
house.
There. I would do that. I would say that, when things get really rocky, I just want to be in a hospital rocking the babies that need to be rocked. Like
exactly.
I want to hold everyone.
Oh, no, I definitely would do it with you.
Yay. Okay. Well, we got a new plan.
Okay. It was really, you're just precious and wonderful and kind. And I'm very glad you're doing this podcast.
Thank you.
And I hope you're successful, and I'll tell everybody I know about it. I'll send messages out.
You're the best. Well, thank you so much. And I hope that our paths continue to cross. I will be in New York in early October. So if you're around,
I'll be here.
Kathleen,
I'll be here.
Maybe we can go grab
for
lunch.
Sure. Yeah, or a drink.
Yeah, well, even better. Perfect.
Yeah.
Big hugs. Thank you so much, Faith. I appreciate it.
You too, honey. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.